sun hues. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode?
Like that.
Yay.
That is wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much, Amara. I had to have her tone down some of the theatrics, so that was, that was that version. But I'm sure if you let her, she would jump up from a podium and read it if we were all in person. So thank you so much. You're welcome to stay around if you want to.
Yay.
Okay, good. So she'll join us. All right, well, let's kind of get into it. So I have the pleasure of welcoming the Honorable G. Helen Whitener, Justice, Washington State Supreme Court. Justice G. Helen Whitener was appointed to the Washington State Supreme Court in April 2020, and she was elected by the voters to retain her position on the state Supreme Court in November 2020. Prior to her appointment to the Washington State's highest court, Justice Whitener served as a Pierce County Superior Court judge. Justice Whitener also served as a judge on the Washington State Board of Insurance Appeals and as a pro tem judge in Pierce County District Court and the City of Tacoma Municipal Court. Before becoming a judge, Justice Whitener litigated both civil and criminal cases for 14 years as first a prosecutor and defense attorney, and later as a managing partner of the law firm of Whitener, Rainey, Ritt, PS. Justice Whitener is well recognized by the legal community for her commitment to justice and equity, and one of the many awards that she has deservedly received is recognition by the 400 Years of African American History Commission, naming her a 2020 Distinguished 400 Awardee. I'll have to mention just the connection to Justice Whitener, if you don't mind. She used to be, her firm was right above our firm when I was in private practice. So at times I would run up and sort of pick her brain about certain things. And I feel I am in a great position because of that. Justice Whitener, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for taking your time out of your day to hear from me. When Naja reached out, I wanted to know, well, what am I speaking about in Black History Month? And I heard the theme was equity, equality, and identity. And I thought, how appropriate for someone like me. So I wrote something and I'd like to share it with you. The American system of justice is a coded paradigm. The overarching code is the rule of law that must be communicated and interpreted for all other codes to be effective. The actions and communications of all participants, society, lawyers, and judges are controlled by these codes. So exactly what do the codes equity, equality, and identity mean to someone like me? There is a current frustration felt in the American justice system that I refer to as the burden of change. The frustration surrounds a systemic and institutionalized problem of inequality and inequity that has permeated America's history and is visibly impacting the justice system. The legal profession continues to work on issues surrounding eliminating bias and enhancing diversity and inclusion. Lots of training continues to occur on identifying and understanding implicit and explicit bias, and not enough on how manifestations of implicit bias impact the receiver. Intent versus impact communication is the act of transmitting an intent, which is composed into a message that is then conveyed to a recipient who then processes the message sent. In other words, he or she tries to make sense of or interprets what is said. Therefore, in order to fully understand the impact of the communicated message, we should first understand the messenger. I was born and raised in the small two-island Caribbean nation of Trinidad and Tobago. My parents were educators, and on their meager teacher's salary every year, they tried to take one of or more of their 4 children to another island or country. They did not have much, so they never could take all of us at the same time. I had an opportunity to travel with my parents for the first time to the United States of America in the early 1970s. I had been to England before because Trinidad and Tobago was an English colony, but I became intrigued and perturbed by the United States of America. And I was not quite sure what to make of this powerful nation with the name United, but where everything seemed separated. At that time, most of the history I learned was of England, Europe, and other Caribbean islands. What I learned about America, I learned from television and magazines. I saw videos and photos in Black Ebony and Jet magazines of beautiful Black people. I also saw photos of white police officers using water hoses, kicking, punching, and hurting men, women, and children, the majority of whom were Black, and the officers were always white. I saw photos of Black men and women sitting at a restaurant counter, refusing to leave and just asking to be served. I saw photos of Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat in the front of the bus, demanding to be afforded the right to sit wherever she pleased on a bus that she paid to ride in. This theme kept repeating it itself over and over again, of people just wanting to be treated fairly and to be considered equals. I saw the quest for acknowledgement of Black pride with the Black Panther movement and heard about the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. I saw it as a powerful group of civic leaders who advocated for equal rights for all. I was taught about people like Stokely Carmichael, a civil rights activist who was born in Trinidad. I heard and sang along with the lyrics of Black Pride by James Brown, Say Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Songs from an Australian American singer, Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, and Caribbean singer Bob Marley, Get Up, Stand Up for Your Right. My identity was being formed. I grew up with Black pride, wearing my hair in cornrows and afros and wearing dashikis and African prints. I was raised to stand up and stand out, and when necessary, stand fast. I was taught by my parents that I could be anything that I wanted to be. From birth, I was taught to rise, that I mattered, that I was worthy. So imagine my surprise when I immigrated to the United States, where the very essence of my being has been continuously attacked, where people saw and treated me differently based on the color of my skin, the way I spoke, and where I was from. I also had to learn the limitations associated with physically moving around, amongst other things. This was my first introduction to racism, inequity, inequality, and explicit bias. I realized the struggles that I saw on TV and read in books were not only real, but that they continued to exist. So how does a person fit in when you know you were born to stand out? My father always quoted, "To thine own self be true." So I made the personal choice many years ago to be vocal, visible, and vigilant, to demand not only to be heard, but also to be seen, treated, and respected as an equal. In 2016, after joining the Pierce County Superior Court, I received 2 proclamations and a personal letter from then President Barack Obama, thanking me for work in 2015 that I had done on behalf of the State Department. I would like to share part of it with you today. The proclamation is titled Caribbean American Heritage. It reads in part, "For centuries, Americans have been united with our Caribbean neighbors, not just by friendship and economic cooperation, but also our common values and ties of kin. From a region of extraordinary beauty, generations of immigrants have brought their enormous spirit, unique talents, and vibrant culture to the United States. Their contributions have enriched our nation and strengthened the deep bonds between our peoples. We celebrate the Caribbean Americans whose legacies are woven into the fabric of our nation, and we affirm our belief that throughout the region, we all share a stake in one another's success. As partners, our nation has reached for progress together, and in our diverse cultures and complex histories, we see a common trajectory towards a more free, equal, and prosperous community. Throughout the Caribbean, Courageous people have thrown off the yoke of colonial rule, seizing the right to charge their own destinies. And they have overcome the stains of slavery and segregation to widen the circle of opportunity for all. Here in America, Caribbean Americans have followed in the footsteps of their ancestors, joining their voices with the chorus of patriots and carrying forward the baton of justice. From the battlefield and the outfield, in places like Selma and Seneca Falls, and through powerful song, poetry, and prose. I was really moved to hear Amara share her poem, because my identity as a Caribbean naturalized American is history. It's my history. And I also write poetry and prose. And I thought I'd share one of them with you today. It goes. I really wish we could have met under different circumstances, where we are judged on our character and not on labels that are used to separate us. Labels such as our race, the color of our skin, our gender, who we love, where we are from, what job we have, how much money we make, or what title we hold. Being perceived as a marginalized individual is not only incorrect, but it ignores the multidimensional layers of our identity and experiences. A judge's decisions are impacted by his or her life experiences, which assist but not dictate the interpretation of the law. Otherwise, why not just have the judiciary be as it was when first started, a group of white men? The role of the judiciary is to check the power of the majority. Remember, it was the majority that created separate but equal, and it was the judiciary that checked the majority to ensure that the rights of the individual were upheld. If the majority had its way, I would not be before you now as a state Supreme Court justice or married to a woman. If having a voice makes one bias, then that means that all marginalized persons cannot be, for example, judicial officers. You see, who I am is the color of my skin, is my gender, is where I was born, and is who I love, amongst other things. So how do you interact or engage with someone like me, a Black female immigrant lesbian with a disability? Carefully. As a marginalized individual, I don't have the privilege of being silent on issues that affect me. So even though my perspective may not be privilege-based, it is still worthy of consideration. Upon becoming a judge a few years ago, a white male told me that I was too visible. I smiled and told him that unlike him, I did not have the privilege of being silent on issues that affect me as a marginalized individual. I already don't have much of a say, and now you want to take even that away? My marginalized identity overlap or intersect with systems of oppression and discrimination that remind me daily that I'm not privileged. I use my voice to create visibility, to address the plight of the silenced voices, to address inequality and inequity. So how do you interact or engage with someone like me? Thoughtfully. I'm standing over here wondering if you can see me. You invite me in, and I'm so excited to join you and to have a seat at the table. I'm just blown away by your generous act. But then when I stand to join you, you seat me, not enough to be seen, but far enough away to not be heard. And when I try to speak, you silence me, making it clear that my voice is not to be heard. I then realize that everything about our interaction says I am to know my place. In your eyes, I am an abomination, an evil being. And you were taught to literally see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And we know that is not what those words were meant to mean. But you took these words literally, and it has impacted how you interact with me, because when you look at me, that is how you see me, an abomination, an evil being. So how do you interact or engage with someone like me? Respectfully. There are many features that we share, but there are aspects of what makes me, me. When you look at me, what exactly is it that you see? Because I see you, but do you see me? When I speak, what exactly is it that you hear? Because I hear you, but do you hear me? We are here to work together. So why is it so hard for you to respect me? I really want to speak to you, but will you listen to what I have to say? I cannot be just a face at the table. I cannot just hold a space. I have a voice that strains to be heard as I always speak from my truth. I have so much that I want to share, but would my narrative be understood? We have all taken a different path to get to where we are, and seeing the intersectionality of our personal and professional experiences can assist us in moving forward together. It will show us how much we have in common rather than focusing on our differences. It can help us move from repeatedly laying the foundation to our relationship to building a stronger, enduring relationship. The justice system I work within has embedded within it institutional, systemic, and structural racism. These are not just words, but are a reality, one that we must address together to find sustainable solutions. So in this pursuit, how do you engage or interact with someone like me? The same as you do anybody, thoughtfully, respectfully, and inclusively. My journey has not been all roses, and I have been the target of hate and vile rhetoric meant to instill fear and to silence my voice. But I've learned that silence is a form of disenfranchisement, and it shares a historical theme with slavery, internment, mass incarceration, and immigration. Today, the achievement of equality for all requires an inclusive approach. But be aware that the achievement of inequality also requires an inclusive approach. It is an approach of divisiveness, which we must address in a cohesive manner in order to effectuate sustainable change. So my dear colleagues and friends, I end with words in the letter I received in 2016, along with the proclamations. It said, America is and always has been a nation of immigrants. America is strong because of our openness, our diversity, and our legacy as a nation of immigrants. And I was told my story speaks to the importance of one of the most fundamental principles, that no matter who you are, where you come from, or who you love, all our people should have an equal chance to share in America's promise. I thank all of you for giving me a space today where my voice can be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Whitener. Of course, I think we have some questions and hopefully you have some time for some Q&A. I'll start.
Definitely.
Thank you. Heather, do you or did you receive any questions at this point? Okay, if you do have some questions to all the folks in the Digisphere, feel free to send them private chat to either myself or to Ms. Muero, Heather Muero. I have a question. You spoke a little bit about obviously coming to America and obviously seeing and having your identity form through what you saw at that point. As you transitioned into the decision to get into law, my first question is, was there a turning point that made you decide or jump into the law? And then I believe you got into some defense work. What was the thought process to get into defense work as opposed to say prosecution or anything else?
It's funny you ask, because my first job was actually as a law clerk at the AG's office. And I struggled with that. I had to speak to my aunt who was in New York at the time. And I was like, Auntie, I don't think I want to do anything on the state side. You know, I want to be a defense attorney. And she said something that was really profound and formed my idea as to how I was going to progress through the legal profession. And she said, you need to understand that side. It's a powerful side, and you need to understand how it works. It'll make you better in understanding the system as a whole, because the system in the islands is British, and it was a totally different system. But I came in thinking I just wanted to be a litigator. I didn't care what side I was on after that discussion. And in law school, I tried to get as much experience as I could. So I actually started off as a law clerk, then I went to prosecution. And then I went to public defense. And then I went back to prosecution. And then I decided, you know what, I'd like to do something different. And I started my law practice, which is where I met you.
I have another one too. I don't mean to dominate your time, but you know, we've chatted
We can
and I
talk.
just
If
think
you don't want to ask questions, we'll just
well,
talk.
it'll just be you and I. That's fine.
You know it.
And an audience. You know, in 20, I think it was what, 2015 or 16, you had a TED Talk.
Yes,
Can you
2016.
2016? Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be, how you accepted that, where was it at? Just educate us about that.
Well, I got to the Superior Court in 2015, and that was January of 2015. The contact I got from the State Department was April of 2015. I'm about to start a campaign because I had to run for election in May. And this request was to go back to Trinidad on a humanitarian mission because being openly gay on the islands was, and I have to say was, thankfully, illegal. You could be sentenced up to 25 years, you know, and that was shocking for me. I had no idea. So after doing that, I came back and I found out that it was really the State Department contacting me was through some proclamations that then President Obama had done. And how I came on their purview was when I got to the Superior Court, my mother decided it was one of the biggest things, you know, for the family, typical Caribbean mother. So she put together this interview that I did for this small newspaper on the island. And little did we know it went viral through the Caribbean islands. And that's why when the president did his proclamation, it caught their attention because not only was I Caribbean American, I was LGBT and I had just arisen to the judiciary. So they saw me as being a good ambassador. So after doing that, in 2016, I was contacted the end of 2015 to come back and do a TEDx talk. I had never heard about TED Talks, so I had no idea what they were talking about. But after, you know, having the discussions and everything, the embassy flew me back to do the TEDx talk. And I decided it was probably best to deal with the LGBT issue. And I thought, why not deal with marginalizations and identities? And back then I still call them codes, because to me, the world operates on codes. And for the codes for me was Black, female, immigrant, and LGBT. And those were the 4 categories I picked for the TED Talk, and I chatted about them. Yeah.
Those are definitely on YouTube for those who want to view that. It's awesome, if I do say so myself. Heather, did you receive any questions at this point from anyone else?
I did. Just a moment here. Let
Sure.
me get ready. Okay, so Justice Whitener, here's a question. You spoke of Bob Marley and other messengers. Who are some of your favorite contemporary messengers of promise, hip hop or other, and why?
Okay. Oh, I'm really going to be expressing some secrets here. But I was a litigator, and every time before trial, I played Tupac to get my mind right. I just loved Tupac. So I love the poetic rhythm of his words and this, you know, fight against the odds kind of mentality. I also play a lot of what we call soca, which is a mixture of Caribbean music. And that gets me in the mode of making me authentic and connected to my roots. I try not to look up to a lot of folks. I try to look inward. I try to take things from others, but I look inward in perfecting me, so to speak. So those are 2 things that I tend to do. I love poetry. So if you listen to a lot of Caribbean people when we speak, it's very rhythmic, you know, and if you hear me speak with my family, it's a sing song, and you can tell who is from what island based on how we say things. So yeah, Tupac, oddly enough, I just love Tupac. I know that's probably going to be viral.
Well, you'll have all the Tupac lovers on your side, so at least you have a club there.
I love all types of music. On the island, we we listen to everything. There's only one genre of music that I honestly can't say I like because it just sounds like a lot of noise to me, and that is hard rock. I just hear noise, ding, ding, ding. But, you know, East Indian music I get into because there's a large East Indian population on the island, Asian music. So everything is mixed up, really.
Thank you. I have a question here from the audience. Studies have shown that supervising attorneys, presumably white, review memos and motions drafted under the name of someone presumed to be BIPOC more harshly than those submitted under a more traditional white name. Did you experience that as an attorney? And if so, how did you address it?
Well, that's an interesting question because if it did happen, I wouldn't know. What I can tell you is, as a marginalized individual, appearing in courtrooms where I wasn't seeing anybody like myself was very intimidating and many times very dismissive by the judiciary, which is why upon joining the judiciary, I do a lot of work in trying to overcome that situation for attorneys that look like me or may come from backgrounds similar to mine. I can see it happening because in the larger world, that's what they do. They look, they see a particular name, they make assumptions, which is why it has always been difficult getting your foot in the door, which is why when you do get there, it's really important to mentor and create support mechanisms for those that are coming behind you. Not to get there and get comfortable, it's to get there and enlarge the arena. You know, some people feel when they get to a certain level, for example, they get to judgeship, that they have arrived and their work is done. That doesn't work for a marginalized individual, at least, not for me and for many that I know. When we get there, we work even harder to make sure that our colleagues who aren't like us see us as being competent, even though we know we are, have them see us as being competent, have them become allies in diversifying the judiciary. We have a thing called the Gavel Gap. We don't have enough people on our benches that are reflective of the community that they're serving. And that's a problem because this is an institution that operates on optics, you know? That's why we say the appearance of impartiality. Yeah, not just impartiality, the appearance of, because optics and perceptions are important in this field. So I don't know, I can't say that I know of any judge that did that, but I know of many judges that made me feel less than, less worthy, and very dismissive in their approach. I would like to think that is changing, and it is changing because of training and education. But we still have work to do.
I have a follow-up really quickly. You just mentioned that Gavel Gap, and I know we have a number of probably prosecutors, defense attorneys, attorneys in general on the line. But for those who are considering, especially those attorneys who are, BIPOC, considering making that leap and sort of on the fence about it, what would you tell them to sort of perhaps help them make that decision to make the leap to become a judge?
The judiciary is a wonderful profession. I love the law. I love being immersed in the law. But until I became a judge, I did not realize just how important it is to have judicial officers with varied backgrounds, personal and professional backgrounds, by the way, geographic as well, because it really enhances the trust and confidence in this profession that we chose. I would tell anyone aspiring to the judiciary, but especially BIPOC individuals, please do. And just remember the avenue and the pipeline created and mostly in place were not really set up for us. So we are creating it. So it's always good to reach out to the judges of color if you happen to be a BIPOC. It's also important to get experience pro-temming if you can, You don't need it necessarily, but I'll tell you, if you're BPOC, you probably need it more than most. And just know that you can. And we need differences. We don't just need prosecutors, we need public defenders, we need private defense counsels, but they usually would get there faster than the public and government lawyers. But most definitely, we are in dire need of those voices at the table, at the decision-making table. The gatekeepers are being educated, and many of them are actually becoming accepting of the idea of their judicial colleagues being different.
Heather, do you have one?
I have several more questions that I will take in the order received. I know Naja and I were gonna go back and forth. So the first question, Justice Whitener, is, what are some of your favorite books or good books you have read recently?
I have not read any good book recently. Everything I read has been briefed. I got to the Supreme Court in a virtual world. I'm operating in this virtual world. I have not sat with my colleagues on the bench. I have not had a meeting with my law clerks and my JAA together. This is my platform. And I tell you, every minute that I can, I try to connect with the community as much as possible, as I'm doing here today. So I tend to read after hours, and I have been going from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom. Like it. I hate the fact that it's making me tired, but I kind of like it because it's giving me the ability to see and connect more than I could if it was required in person. But I haven't read anything recently. I think the last book I started and I haven't finished was Michelle Obama's Becoming, and yeah, I'm like past chapter 1. That'll tell you how far I got in the book.
I have another one here, Justice. What's the best advice you can give to our children on how to stand up for what they believe in?
My mother said I came out of the womb a fighter. She might be right about that. But I think one of the things we have to instill in our youth is their worth. Too many times they turn on television or radio or open a magazine, and it's getting better, but overall, especially lately, and lately being the last few years, not just today, it's been very demoralizing. 2017, I put on this program in Pierce County called The Color of Justice, and it's a National Association of Women Judges program that I adapted. And what people don't know is the reason I adapted that program a bit, and I made it just for girls from marginalized backgrounds, and brought in judges, females from marginalized backgrounds to interact and, you know, to inspire and empower them, was because I, after getting to the bench, and then in 2016, every time I turned on the news, parts of me that I've discussed with you were being attacked. Black people, women, LGBT, people who identify as having a disability, immigrants. I mean, I was like getting it left, right, and center. I just decided I didn't want to deal with the television at all. News was just not good news. And that's why I thought about the girls and how they would be feeling. I think many times as adults, we forget that children are going through the same thing. You know, I'm seeing a lot of Black children being mistreated, and I'm quite sure you're seeing that, not just in the schools, but their encounter with school officials, their encounter with law enforcement. It has moved from adults to children. We have to make sure we let them know how worthy they are, how much they matter to us, and irrespective of their color, they're children, and they need to be empowered. They need us, really and truly, to instill that in them, because they're not getting it. And they're getting a lot of things that was surprising to me as I started to keep up with a lot of the things that are going on. I think it's our responsibility to make sure they know they're worthy, they know they matter, and they know we believe in them.
Okay, Justice Whitener, another question from the audience. what words of encouragement do you have for young Black attorneys that are struggling with institutionalized racism?
That's hard. I'm the judge, if you don't remember, after that program I was put on a supremacist website and called the N Judge, who was trying to empower and inspire the N children. But at the end of the day, those reactions are meant to silence you. They're meant to derail you. And you have to look at them as fear and don't succumb to it. They're fearful of you. They're fearful of your worth. They're fearful of what you are capable of. You're 110%. You're required to be 110% better than the other just because of who you are. So just being an attorney tells you you're worthy. The other thing is, stop looking to others to raise you. Okay? If the path isn't there, reach out to the allies that we have that don't look like us. When I talked about the civil rights movement growing up and seeing that, what stood out to me, coming from an island where everybody is one, we're all Trinis, is how we look at it, first and foremost, and coming to America and you're an American second, so you're like a Caribbean American, Italian American. On the islands, you're the island first. The thing about it, what I saw in those civil rights movements is not only Black people. That is what resonated with me. There are white allies. There are allies that don't look like you, that are there to help you. I didn't get to sit on a bench as a pro tem judge because there weren't any Black judges. There was a white judge that saw me and reached out to me and said, hey, have you ever pro tem'd? So I also don't believe in waiting for somebody else to reach out. I make people my mentors. You know, I see something, I like something in them. It's like, hey, I really like what you do. And can you chat with me? And you chat with them and then you're like, would you mentor me? You know, and people love to mentor. If they have the time, they love it. I mentor a lot of folks and I do it in a really simple way. When you need me, I'm here. I'm not going to have anything structured because everybody is at a different place. So I'd say first and foremost, reach out to the judges that you admire. Reach out to folks. There's always something you like about somebody. And create you. Look within yourself and create you. And many of the judges, the BPOC judges, we are trying to create a pipeline so you don't have to redo what we have done. You can step on our shoulders and move forward. That's why we're laying that foundation. That's why my ancestors laid it. I didn't get here just by me. I stepped on a lot of shoulders to get here. So reach out. That's why we're here. And we're willing to help as long as we have the time. And people always ask me if I'm not a vampire or something because it looks like I never sleep. I make the time. You'll be surprised. I'm not the only one. Many of us are here for you. So reach out to us.
Thank you. Got kind of a mix of serious and light questions. Favorite movie with African Americans in lead roles? What's your favorite movie with that category?
Wow. You know, I never really thought about it, but I love Raisin in the Sun. I love Sidney Poitier. So Raisin in the Sun would be up there. Because he was one of the first leading role actors I knew about. And I love Denzel Washington, so anything with him, you know, I think he is suave. I like to think of him like my dad because I thought my dad, you know, was real smooth, and that's how I see Denzel Washington. And I love Queen Latifah, so anything with the Queen in it, right? She's now the Equalizer, which was Denzel's role, so I'm now an Equalizer following person. Yeah, so those would have to be the type of Raisin in the Sun is probably up there.
Go ahead,
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Naja. This is sort of not intentionally, this is the last question that I've received, kind of goes along with the question Naja just asked. So in an earlier conversation, we heard about film and other images of Black people from around the world and the impact. What are your views on the impact of current portrayals of Africans, African Americans, and those of diaspora on judicial and other discretionary calls made in and by those in the justice system? What should we do about those images?
The images have always been there. The difference is we're seeing more and more of them because of the accessibility of social media. Remember, I was on an island. I was seeing the videos of the hose being used on Black men and Black women standing up for their rights. Because I was in Trinidad, I don't know what was going on here, but we were very much involved in following what was happening in South Africa, apartheid. So my lens have always been an international lens, even though I've been in the US for many years now. I think what is happening that's different is we're seeing, because I was on a conference call last week in regards to race issues in England. And I was shocked to realize that a lot of things they're going through, we're going through here, because I hadn't kept up with that. So this is nothing new. What I'm hoping will be new is that it doesn't die down and that we do in fact make some lasting systemic and structural changes within the system. I am tired of having the discussion. I'd like us to move to the implementation stage of eradicating all of these barriers. This discussion is new. I mean, if you go back and you listen to Dr. King's speech, you listen to Malcolm X, you listen to Marcus Garvey, you know, Stokely Carmichael, you listen to these discussions, they're not new. It's what's frustrating to me. This isn't new. What I'm hoping would be different is the changes that occur. Hopefully they have lasting effect where we build on them and not get comfortable and have us go back, because it's like a cycle, you know. Let's keep it moving forward. We may slip back 4, but let's move forward 5. And we slip back 3 and we move forward 6. This is not something we will fix in our lifetime, I don't believe, but I do believe we can make sustainable changes that the other generation or the next generation can build on.
And Justice, we have one final question.
Can I follow up on that?
Oh,
please?
go ahead, Judge McCullough.
So, Justice Whitener, with respect to those images and the impact on people in the judiciary, do you think that there is any impact on what those images of Africans and African Americans, what those images are? Does that impact discretionary calls, jury selection, or police discretion? What is the impact of those images, and how do we call them out and address the impact of those images on the work that we do?
I think, Judge McCullough, I think you just hit on it. We have to call it out. You know, I always say, you see this training about implicit bias? I'm glad that we're having it, but I don't know of anyone that has done an implicit bias to me. Bias has always been explicit, you know. It's a manifestation of what's in their head, and I can't read what's in their head. So it's always been explicit to me. But I can't tell you what impact it's having on them because I am in the group that's impacted. What I can say is I am trying to hold everybody accountable, and I think that is required. Sometimes we're too silent and we let things slide out of being polite. And I'm just tired of being polite. I don't think we need to be polite to move things forward. By saying we don't need to be polite, I'm not saying we need to be unprofessional. What I'm saying is our politeness has made us silent. We need to speak up. We need to call it out. We need to have them address the implicit bias because they're indicating, you know, it's unconscious, we all have it. But at the end of the day, it's explicit. for us to know about it, it has been manifested. It went from in the mind, the unconscious, to the conscious, and it was manifested in some form of action. So calling it out and having this true discussion about it. You know, I try to have the discussion from time to time, and I can always tell when people start tensing up and everything else, but, you know, I have written right here, if you guys think I'm not being truthful, but here it is. It is not my responsibility to raise your consciousness, okay? That's it. It is my responsibility to call out the situation where I see it, but it is your responsibility to go do the homework. That's it. It is not my responsibility to raise your consciousness. If you really care, I think you do the homework. And if you don't, we've had many of those, ain't nothing you can do. There are too many hearts to work on and minds to change. And you can't get caught up on the few. Let's deal with those that want to change, those that want to hear us, and let's use those allies moving forward and build a coalition moving forward.
Justice Whitener, one final question for you.
How many finals you were going to have, Naja? Go ahead.
This is the truth this time, Scout's honor. Is there one person who inspired you, and if so, why?
My father, you know, my father, and he's passed now. But one of the things I learned from my father, and he always says, to thine own self be true, he taught me to be my authentic self. He said, people will talk whether you do or you don't, so just make sure you do you. So I do. He also did not really believe in identity labels, you know. He didn't believe in the pink dress for the girl and the blue, you know, shirt for the boy. He just was really a very bright but humble man. And every day I tried to aspire to be like my dad. He was a great listener. He was self-taught. You know, my mother went to university. Daddy, he ended up having to go to what we call teachers college, and he worked his way up. And I see that helping me. He was a very hard worker, and he was very much a community-oriented teacher. You know, I felt like everybody had daddy but us, unless he got home, you know. He was very much in the community. So I have tried to be like him and live up to him, and I hope, you know, to make him proud. But that was my idol and has been my idol. And I know there are some saying, well, what about your mother? Well, my mother is like me. So yeah, that should answer that. You know, she is really the more outspoken one. I have to learn to be more like daddy as time goes on, to refrain myself. But yeah, my father.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Justice Whitener. It is always a pleasure to hear from you, to see you. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy Zooming schedule to spend that time with us here today.
Thank you. And anytime, I will make the time. But as to the BPOC students, as well as the non-BPOC attorneys, reach out. You know, what's the worst that can happen when you ask somebody to help you? They say no. I can guarantee you that will be the few that will say that. Most will make the time. So if you have an interest, and I hope you do, reach out to us, because we would love to have you join the judiciary. We would love to make that space for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We have just a few quick announcements, and then I'll turn it over to Judge Michael Scott and Judge Sandra Woodland to close out this Black History Month, this awesome Black History Month. The Sisters Who Care on this Friday have a trivia lunchtime where they will pose questions, and of course you all will have answers that are generated from our speaker series, especially the one here today with Justice Whitener. If you need to refresh your memory on anything, we do have our week's past speaker series on both the SharePoint page, or you can visit our Superior Court YouTube to see all of the videos, well, 3/4 of the videos, I should say. We're working on Professor Gordon, but you can review the videos, or if you missed them in general or want to see this one more time, you can definitely view them from our Superior Court webpage. With that being said, the last thing that I have before I turn it over to Judge Scott is our poem contest for this Black History Month. We didn't have many entries, but we did have one that rose to the top. And our winner this year for writing a creative piece about what Black History Month meant to her is Superior Court's very own Darlin Johnson. So Darlin, if you are on the line, I'm gonna reach out to you for the $40 gift card that we have. So I know everyone hearing that is probably wishing they would have submitted an entry. So we'll see you next year. But Darlin, I'll reach out to you after today about that gift card. So thank you so much, Darlin. Judge Scott, Judge Woodland, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Naja, very much. It has been an awesome Black History Month. On behalf of the Courts and Community Committee, it has been a Black History Month to remember, and we are grateful to everyone who's been involved this month. We've had just incredible weekly multimedia e-newsletters that have educated us about history and our colleagues and neighbors and their important contributions currently. We've had weekly presentations that have reminded us and educated us about the incredible contributions of Black Americans, Black members of our communities across time and across all fields of human endeavor. Of course, human rights and civil rights, but arts and sciences and public policy and governance, including near and dear to most of our hearts, the system of justice. It's all the more important to learn about and celebrate these contributions and these lives because of the enormous obstacles that have been overcome in giving us these contributions, the lingering effects of our tragic history of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation and implicit bias and explicit bias and lingering systemic institutional structural racism. So these points of light are all the more important to celebrate. They have lifted us all up. Although, as Justice Whitener just reminded us, it's not her job to raise our consciousness. She and the others who've been involved in this month have raised our consciousness, have helped us raise our own consciousness. And for that, we are profoundly grateful. I want to specifically thank our guest presenters, culminating this week in Justice Whitener. Thank you so much for your wise and profound remarks and lessons and thoughts. We also want to thank Professor Dexter Gordon of University of Puget Sound, Senator Twinna Nobles, Representative Jesse Johnson, Jason Turner of the National African American Museum, and the student participants who inspired and lifted us up each week. Today, Amara Bullock, thank you, Amara. Previously, Malia Mawero and Mathis Hill. They've been joyful additions to our Black History Month celebration. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to my colleague and co-chair of the Courts and Community Committee, Judge Sandra Woodland.
Thank you. Well, Judge Scott and I also want to extend our thanks and gratitude to the 2021 Black History Month Planning Committee for your dedication and all of your hard work in putting together these incredible programs for all of us. Thank you very much to Judge McCullough, Naja Bullock, Ivan Sandoval, Heather Marrero, Rosalia Henley, Catherine Davis, Judge Phelps, Laura Doris, Laminia Bridges, Jay Ware, and Christine Robinson. You've all been incredible, and it's been such a wonderful month. Thank you so much. And I believe that concludes our program for today. It's really been a pleasure.
I would have one final comment, Naja, if I may. So as the old man of the group and the self-appointed advisor, I wanted to take this special opportunity to thank the committee members, Judge Woodland, whose names you called, but to also give special recognition to Naja. Many of you know that Naja is one of our extraordinary workers in a very tough area of family law. Heather Marrero, the same. They are just phenomenal people, and we cannot thank either one of you enough for your work, what you do on your regular job, and then you took the extra step to do this. So we do want to acknowledge you and thank you, Ivan, as well. For those of you who are on the call, remember to go back and review your newsletters. Naja worked really hard on getting those together for you. You'll see there, you'll be reminded that the Black history did not start in 1619. If you don't remember anything else, just remind people that our history did not start with enslavement, that we go back. Our history is rich. Your newsletter includes information on the University of Sankore, which was in the 1300s in West Africa, 25,000 students. Your newsletter includes information about the African Grove Theater from 1821 and so much more. And Naja has pulled that all together for your reading, your edification, and for your inspiration. So thank you very much, young people. You were awesome. All of you are hereby deputized. You are African-American history missionaries, emissaries. So wherever you go, make sure that you tell the story. So with that, your affiant has nothing else to say. Naja, we are back to you for the closing comments.
Nothing more, really. Thank you so much. Again, a big thank you to the Superior Court family members that we also included in the newsletter, from the Defense Prosecuting Attorney's Office, DJA, Family Court Operations, and of course, bailiff as well. So we had a great representation. Look forward to more events through the Courts and Community Committee, who of course Judges Scott and Woodland so faithfully chair. So we look forward to the events, and thank you so much.
All right, take care everybody. Yeah, bye.